appearances in the Ad Council.
WOKB, Winter Garden, Orlando.
Welcome to another edition of Real Family Talk. Hello. Welcome to another week of Real Family Talk. This is your host, Jay Real. I hope everybody's having a great Tuesday evening. As always, I'm having an awesome Tuesday evening because it is Tuesday Real Family Talk. We got a few people joining us tonight. It's a pleasure to have these people in the building with me tonight. I really do appreciate it. Let me go ahead and introduce some of my regulars, though. Jeremy is in the building. How you doing tonight, Jeremy?
I'm good. How y'all doing out there?
Awesome.
How y'all doing in there? Y'all packed in there.
We packed in.
Got a lot of room in here.
Miss McCray's in the building. How you doing, Miss McCray?
Hey, I'm blessed. What's up, everybody?
Awesome. And then joining us tonight, every third Tuesday of the month, joining us is Jason Henry. So he's in the building tonight. How you doing, Jason?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. And joining us tonight also is Miss Tiffany. Miss Tiffany's here. How you doing, Miss Tiffany?
I'm wonderful. Great to be here.
Awesome. So let's get right to it. Jason's got a segment he's going to do. He's going to talk about the bill that the Governor Rick Scott just signed into law. He'll tell us about that in a moment. But before we get there, I wanted to kind of piggyback on your comments from the last month, I should say, that you were talking about referencing Syria. Mm-hmm. And here we are, a month later from your talk.
I thought of you too.
It's getting hot now, right?
And the president has basically backed a measure supplying weapons to the rebels.
Yeah.
What's your comment on that, man?
I can't say I'm necessarily surprised because when I talked about it last month, I said that, Obama said that there had to be a red line that Syria had to cross. And I guess that red line has been crossed because supposedly they have evidence that Syria has used chemical weapons on the opposition. So as we know, as I've talked about last month, that there is an ongoing civil war going on in Syria right now. Almost 100,000 people have been murdered. Let's just call it what it is. You can call it ethnic cleansing. You can call it genocide. But there is a serious problem going on in Syria right now. So the United States has kind of had a handoff approach as this thing has kind of continued to go on. And when President Obama was asked about the situation when he visited Jordan, he said that he had no good policy option. And when they asked him, with the United States conflict or with I guess you can say advanced ground troops in Syria, would you provide, air troops to go in and kind of silence the conflict? And he said that, he just is not sure basically what to do. So they've been providing humanitarian aid. That hasn't really worked. And when they received this evidence that that Syria had used chemical weapons, that's when the president made the move to go ahead and arm the rebels. So that's kind of where we stand now. It would not shock me if the United States quietly sent about 3,000, maybe 4,000 troops to Syria to try to help the opposition. But as of right now, because they're talking a lot about this at the G8 summit over in Ireland right now, but as of right now, that's where the United States stand. They're going to continue to provide humanitarian aid to surrounding nations like Jordan, Israel, and they're going to arm the rebels. So it's getting interesting.
It is getting interesting. Sarah Palin made a comment on this over the weekend, and I don't typically
I was about to say,
sign
you about to quote something that Sarah
sign on to stuff that Sarah Palin says. But to summarize her comment, basically she said, we ought to stay out of it and let Allah decide who's going to win. And on that point, wow. Basically saying, let their God, if you will, decide who's going to go back and forth. We're talking about a Muslim nation here. Yeah. Obviously, it's kind of sensationalism the way she put it. But I think she has a fair point. Like you said, it's a civil war. Mm-hmm. We have a tendency to get involved in people's civil wars and then pick a side. And I think it's bad policy on our part, because a lot of times, if you look at history, we pick a side, we help that side wins, and then 5 to 10 years later, that's the same side that's fighting us. So it's like
It's the truth. It's the truth. Because
it's like stop picking sides.
Yeah.
Let
what may end up happening is that the
let 'em
weapons
fight it
that
out, man.
we are providing to them is, as you said, 5-10 years down the road, those same weapons may come back to haunt us because we may end up in a war with Syria. Hopefully that doesn't happen.
Right.
But we've seen that happen before. We've seen it happen with Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
We helped them out in the past, and my prayer, honestly, is that this doesn't advance any further. But the United States has a vested interest in the Middle East because we cannot allow that region to become more unstable, for the economy over there to collapse. And if it does, that's going to have an indirect impact on America's economy. And we're already struggling as it is. So if you have Jordan, Turkey, Afghanistan, Iran, Israel, all these nations, and we see what's going on in Turkey, by the way. I mean, there's an anti-government uprising over there. So there's absolute unrest in the Middle East. And as long as this continues to happen and the United States kind of stands pat, we have to do something. I'm not sure what that something is, but as long as there's unrest in Syria, as long as Bashar al-Assad continues to lead that nation, then the United States is going to have some type of foothold there.
We'll see. Are you gonna say something, Ms. McCray?
No.
We'll see, man. Like I said, I think we need to stay out of these things.
Yeah.
And let them play out, and not pick a side, but just
So you
work
wanna
with the
be
winner.
you
You know
wanna be
what I'm saying?
Switzerland.
Work with the winner.
So you want to be
Whoever
Switzerland
wins-
in this. You don't.
Whoever wins, we'll work with them. If it's 10,000 people left, we'll work with those 10,000 people, man. Like I said, we pick sides, and eventually it only ends up biting us back. And I'm pretty sure it's going to happen in Syria. We the same thing happened in Libya, and we picked a side there, and a side won, and we'll see how that goes. But chances are I don't really see it settling down per se. So it's a good chance. They may not be a country that's going to fight us, but we may be fostering some people who are going to attack us.
Well, I mean,
and even in that, that's still a problem.
And the second side to that is that Russia has been helping al-Assad. So you have Russia, who has an emerging economy. They probably don't want to be called an emerging economy. But you have the United States, you have Russia, you have Vladimir Putin, who said, this past week, that he took the Patriots owner's Super Bowl ring because you can kill a man with it. I mean, this is the type of temperament that we're dealing with. So the United States, the reason why, and that's one of the reasons why I say that they have to have some type of inclusion in this conflict because of Russia. And number one, with John McCain, Senator Lindsey Graham, they don't want to seem soft on Russia. They don't want to seem soft on Vladimir Putin. And as long as Russia continues to provide some type of aid or assistance to al-Assad and the United States is arming the rebels, there's an indirect conflict right there. So you might as well say the United States has an indirect war going on.
Wow.
That's what's up, man. Syria. Stay out, man. That's what we need to do.
Serious?
We need to stay out. Let's go ahead and get to your topic tonight. Jason, I'll let you break it down for the people.
So in essence, if you've been following Orange County politics probably over the past year, or if you've been at a gas station in Pine Hills or at the Magic Mall and someone has tried to get you to sign a petition, it was probably so that we could have paid sick time on the ballot here in Orange County. I remember I was at Burlington last year, and there was a lady that ran up to me and she says, "Hey, I need you to sign a petition." And I'm like, "I've already signed it," because I would like to see the residents of Orange County have a choice as to if they would like this measure to happen. So in essence, what this measure is that if an organization has 15 or more employees, you're going to be required to provide paid sick time to your employees. 15 or under, you were going to be required to have unpaid sick time to your employees. And of course, when some of the county's largest corporations got wind of this, they wanted to stop it, as well as the Republican Party. So Lou Oliver, who is the chairman of the Republican Party here in Orange County, he sent a text message to Jennifer Thompson, who is a county commissioner here in Orange County. And he said, and I'm fast forwarding through some of this, but he said, we can depend on Rick Scott of the legislature to provide the kill shot to this, because there had been some back and forth about if the county was going to allow this to go to the ballot. And eventually a judge ruled that this had to be on the ballot for residents to decide. But Rick Scott put an end to that by signing HB 655, which basically takes that rule out of local government. So he's not going to allow Orange County or any county in the government to have that ability to provide sick time for your employees. So what I wanted to do is that I do not have a direct, interest in this. I wanted to talk to someone who's been on the front lines. I wanted to speak with an organization who has fought tirelessly, for earned sick time. And Maria McClusky, she is with Organize Now, and I wanted to reach out to her to get her thoughts on HB 655, where we go from here, and if residents are interested in this battle, how they can get involved.
How you doing, Maria?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
We're doing good.
So, Maria, thanks again for joining me. Organize Now has pretty much been on the front lines for this fight. And
Correct, yeah.
With HB 655 being signed, and again, I'm going to fast forward a little bit here, what are the next steps for Organize Now and some of the organizations who are fighting to have this ability to Orange County residents?
Well, the fight for earned sick time is not over, and it will continue. For 80% of Floridians believe in an earned sick time policy for hardworking families, and when we believe in something, we won't give up. We also are exploring possible legal remedies to make sure that Orange County voters are not denied their right to vote on earned time in August 2014.
So is that still the hard date? Are you still looking at August of next year to have that on the ballot? Or is this just a battle that you are going to continue to fight until this issue is brought to Orange County voters?
The August 2014 date is actually a court-ordered date. So the county, under a court order from a 3-judge panel, had to put earned sick time on the ballot for August 2014.
Gotcha. Now, if you will, kind of give us a brief breakdown of what earned sick time is. I gave a quick synopsis of earned sick time, but because you've been involved in this fight for so long, can you kind of talk about earned sick time and what it means to the residents of this county?
So our earned sick time is a pro-family policy that allows part-time and full-time workers in Orange County to accrue up to 56 hours of paid sick leave per year. So this allows workers to be able to take time off when they or a child or a family member becomes ill without risk of losing their job or their family's financial stability. And this was the first ever successful citizen-led ballot initiative. We had over 50,000 voters in Orange County sign a petition demanding that they earn the right to vote on this matter at the ballot. And unfortunately, the county, and after the county, the state went on to deny that right to, all of Orange County voters.
So why do you think forces in the county and local organizations or local corporations were so against earned sick time?
Well, I can't speak on behalf of, the corporate interests who were, fighting against this. This is a pro-family policy. This is, democracy at its finest. People petitioning their government to have a chance to vote on something. I can speak for the 80% of Floridians who support an earned sick time policy, and I can also speak as someone who has been forced to make the tough choice myself between my health and my job, and really that's not a choice that any worker or any family should have to make.
Absolutely. Now, looking at this from the other part of it, there was a recent study that said that 54% of small businesses would be negatively impacted, and this would have a cost to residents of up to $82 million, if I'm not mistaken. Now, if I'm a small business and I have over 15 employees and I'm struggling just to keep the doors open, and now I'm being forced to provide sick time to an individual, do you think that is a fair decision for organizations or businesses to have to make?
Well, earned sick time is something that is great not just for families, but it's also the smart thing to do for businesses. Studies that have been done on places that do have an earned sick time policy in place for all workers actually show better economic stability than the surrounding counties. And that directly translates into better financial stability for working families. And earned sick time actually is a huge cost savings for businesses when you think about the reduced costs in turnover, having to interview and hire and train new employees, you increase your productivity. Throughout the U.S., over $160 billion a year in productivity is lost due to workers coming in sick. That's not good for business, and that's not good for workers, and it's not good for customers either.
So to the business or to the person who believes that this just isn't the right time due to the tough financial situation we're facing, what would you say to them?
I would say that this is, now couldn't be a better time. This is, we all want really good, solid people working for us. We want to have great business, and the last thing you need is to have your workers coming in and infecting other workers and thereby infecting customers. That's bad for business, and that's bad for your workers, and that's bad for your customers. So that, that hits your bottom line. So, you need policies like earned sick time that benefit everybody and benefit profit and bottom lines as well.
So to anybody that's listening who feels compelled to become involved or who wants to help you in your fight to make sure that Orange County residents actually have a choice in this matter, what can they do?
Sure. They can go to our website. It's orgnow.org, orgnow.org, and they can click the button at the top to volunteer, and we can plug them in, and they can help us continue this fight because we're just getting started.
Well, Maria, thank you so much. I appreciate you joining us here tonight. Thank you so much for your conversation, for your education as well. And we'll see where this actually goes. I know that once Rick Scott signed the bill, he hopped on a plane over to Paris on a what was it, a job trade type of mission. So
a trade mission, yes.
Yeah.
Everybody in France has earned sick time, so he doesn't have to worry about someone sneezing on his salad.
Isn't that ironic? Thanks again, Maria, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
Thank you, Maria. Oh, okay. Commenting on that just with you for a moment.
Sure.
So in the research that you've done, because the question I had when I heard about this initiative initially, and I'd agree, the way that the government went about doing all of this is obviously wrong. And even though I don't necessarily support the idea of the legislature that they're trying to push, I certainly respect the fact that they got wronged by the government in this case. Like she said, I mean, 50,000 people, which is what you're supposed to do. You sign, you get signatures. And once you get those signatures, that allows you to at least get on the ballot and then let others help decide whether or not they want it. And so they did everything according to the law, and then now the county commissioners initially, and then now the state legislator have basically come behind them and pulled the carpet from under them. So I agree that they got wronged or in this particular situation. But, one of the things I question is the sort of, I get why a worker would want it. I don't necessarily see the benefit to the employer. And then I was curious, what did you find? Were there any benefits that they discussed to the employer per se? Because I just see a cost to the employer. I don't really see a benefit.
Some of the studies that I looked at, there was one that said that there would be a minor positive impact to the employer. So from a safety perspective, let's just say you go to a restaurant, and we'll use the local eatery down the street, and your server's sick. Obviously, you can see that your server's sick. Their nose is running, they're sneezing and coughing. You don't want that server to serve you food. So what this initiative allows is that server has paid sick time. They can call in. You don't have to worry about that. And as far as the employer goes, I would imagine that you would want some type of positive press going on in your business. Now, you can look at that as a skewed opinion because it is something that I think the residents should have an ability to decide on. But on the negative side, to be honest with you, I did find more negatives than I did positives from an employer perspective. One study stated that employees may have to give up some of their benefits if you wanted paid sick time, that it would cost Orange County residents up to $82 million to enact paid sick time. So there were some things that I think you would have to tweak in order to have this to be business friendly and to be, I guess, resident friendly. But the good thing is that they went about it the right way. So if you're not necessarily someone who's on board with earned sick time and that you did not want to see it come to Orange County because it's going to negatively affect businesses, you'd have that right to go out and make your voice heard by voting yes or no. And what the legislature basically did, or what Rick Scott or David Simmons, who was the Republican legislator who came out in support of this bill, who drafted the legislation, you take democracy out of the hands of local residents. And in my eyes, that's absolutely not right. I mean, there's so much going on right now politically in this nation, so much negative press going on with politics right now. And in my opinion, if we have something like the NSA scandal going on, PRISM, where, you know, the government is so-called spying on your phone calls, and then you have where a politician takes that power out of your hands. So it does not look good politically to me. It does not feel good, and it just takes the power out of the hands of the voter. And I do not think that from a local perspective, that's how we want our government to be run.
Right, and like I said, on that point, we definitely we agree on that point.
Yeah,
they got robbed tremendously in this situation.
This is
like
why we
said.
vote. This is why we vote.
You know, and unfortunately, it was a bunch of Republicans that robbed them.
Your people, J. Real.
Yeah, not my people,
It's your
Ms. McCrae.
folks.
We have had this discussion.
Just saying. That's what they do.
But yeah, that was definitely unfortunate, and hopefully, you know, I hope something can happen that will allow them to at least get it on the ballot, and then just see what the people say. I mean, obviously, according to the law is going to trump whatever the ballot box would lead. But at least out of respect, I think they at least hopefully they can make something happen to get it on the ballot, and we'll see what happens.
I hope so. And, you know, if you're listening to this and you're interested, again, go to Organize Now's website, do more research on this. You can go to the Orlando Sentinel's website, Sun Sentinel. You can visit the House and the Senate website to actually view the bill. HB 655 was the number of the bill. Just do a little bit more research. And if it's something that you do not agree with, that's absolutely fine. If it's something that you like to see, then that's fine as well. But the major sticking point is that we need to have this in front of the voter, so you can say yes that you like it or no that you don't.
Exactly. Well, Jason, man, we appreciate you coming by, man. Tell them how they can find you, man.
You can find me Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. on talkradio99.com. The name of the show is the Jason Henry Project. I'm talking about issues just like this: Syria, Turkey, Rick Scott, Republican pretense is one of the things I'm talking about on my latest podcast. But you can head over to the podcast garden / Jason Henry Project as well. Find me on Twitter at ProgressJason, and just type me in on Facebook.
All right, man. We appreciate you coming by, man.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Not a problem, man. We'll see you next month, right?
Absolutely.
All right. We're going to go on to a different topic here. Obviously, this is Central Florida. As we know, George Zimmerman trial is going on. I clicked on the Orlando Sentinel today and noticed the pool of 40 prospective jurors has been chosen. And so the first thing I thought of, because I'm me, that's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know how many black people were going to be in this pool. So I printed it up, and I counted six black people are going to be a part of this pool. You have one, they call him B35, he's described as. He's a middle-aged black man who owns a vending business, who was critical of the Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. Says the case is not racial. That's one. The second one is a young African-American woman who says her friends have opinions on the case, but she doesn't. The third is a middle-aged African-American woman who said after the shooting, Sanford police should have booked Zimmerman and asked him more questions. The fourth, a young black woman who lives in Seminole County 8 months, says there's a lot of racial tension built up. She said, but she stayed away from it. The fifth, a tall black man who lives about a half mile from the scene. He says there's a racial divide in Sanford, but the media has misportrayed the city. And then the last one, a middle-aged African-American man, he said he heard self-defense was involved with the case. He said at one point referring to Zimmerman as the gentleman that was defending himself. So those are the six potential pool of black jurors. Altogether, there are 10 minorities out of the bunch, and it seems like a lot of middle-aged white women as well seem to kind of make up the lot of those potential 40. So the next step here is a second round of questioning for these people, and then remember, ultimately, they're going to pick 6 to be on the jury and 4 alternates. So I'm curious to see. So there's 6 blacks. How many of the 6 actually make the 10? Mr. Craig's looking at me. She's like, none of them.
They're going to do their absolute best to say no. Even the ones that are talking like they may go for Zimmerman's side. They may lean towards him. They're going to be, no, we don't want to take the chance. We don't want to take the chance. I'd be surprised. I'm going to be really surprised.
I'm sure the defense would love to have the black man that is critical of Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, but I bet the prosecution is going to make sure he does not make that list. They're gonna make
you can leave now, sir. Thank you for your civic duty.
Thank you for your time, sir, but you are not needed. Well, again, I'm just curious. I'll be following, or I'm sure everybody's kind of following, at least to some extent, what's happening with the case. And just, let's see what happens, man. I can't wait to see who the final jury makeup is and see the trial get started. The other issue going on, I think, to my knowledge, they still haven't made a decision about all of these experts who were claiming to know who was actually screaming help that night. You got them on both sides. You got those that say it was Trayvon. You got those that say it was Zimmerman. So basically, we got nothing. Right. And I want to see how the judge interprets it, though. That's what I want to find out.
How do they know? I mean, as an expert, I know they go get technical. They go in and look at frequencies and all that stuff. But how do they really know who it is saying what or screaming was on the audio tape?
Yeah.
Like you said, it's a lot of technical mumbo jumbo, I'll call it. Based on a lot. I mean, there's some science involved in the situation.
You got to be all science,
but just like with anything scientific, mistakes can be made. And
it's all theoretical is what you're really trying to say.
It is really all theoretical. I love science. I'm a man of science, but let's be honest, it's really all theoretical. I mean, there are some things that have been proven to be true, but I think, when you're talking about analyzing voices, especially when you got such dividing opinions, I think they have at least two on each side. I think the prosecution has two people that are expert witnesses that are saying it's Trayvon. I think the defense has at least two people that are saying it's George, which pretty much tells me that they don't know. And I think it'd be a shame if any of that came into court in the actual trial, being that it is so, it's like I said, you don't know. They don't know clearly. And it'd be a shame if it came in, because clearly there is no definitive answer on that. But we'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens. Knowing the way this has been going, they probably will let both of them in and let the jury fight it out, which would be great for George, because it's going to give him some reasonable doubt. So Mr. Craig would hate that.
Oh, my God.
All of this could have been prevented if we just stayed in the car. We wouldn't even be talking about any of this, and it wouldn't matter of the science behind it if you just stayed in the car. Like, if I'm a juror, then I'm going to say to myself, I don't care what the evidence is beyond him stepping outside of the car. He had a directive from the authority that we all are under, and that's the police. And if he stayed in the car and did exactly what they said, they could have done their job, and it could have played out completely different. So it's unfortunate that it has to even get to this point, but I don't think it really matters. Whether it is or not, it would be really difficult to just justify if I'm a juror. It'd be really difficult to justify.
Yeah. We'll see, man. 407-894-1680 is the number. 407-894-1680 if you want to comment on the situation at all. Welcome your comments. I'm sure you have a lot of differing opinions out there. This is Central Florida. It has been a huge divide, especially along racial lines, along whether or not you're a gun owner and what you think about guns, and a whole lot of other issues that are happening. So 407-894-1680 is the number if you have any comments on that. But I'll move on. Like I said, we're just kind of watching it at this point. Nothing's really happening. It's kind of that tedious point of the trial as they decide who is actually going to sit in the room and get secluded for those 2 or 3 weeks, I believe, that they believe the trial's gonna go on. And we'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens. I am definitely interested in the outcome. Isn't that right, Miss McCray? You're interested in too, Miss
I
McCray.
am.
I know you
I'm
are.
interested to see what's going to happen.
As long as the outcome is a conviction of second-degree murder.
All I'm saying is he has to face some type of consequence.
Anything else would be a travesty.
It would. If he walks out that courtroom, yeah.
Real quick, one last thing. The other comment I saw on that is apparently his dad has wrote like some kind of ebook on Amazon. Like, what is wrong with this man's family?
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah.
It's looking pretty good. Shut up. I mean, the case is all circumstantial. Like, y'all need to shut up, let the facts play out. I mean, the man's a judge. You would think if anybody was smart enough to just keep his mouth closed, it'd be the dad, the judge, the former judge, the retired judge. Like, come on, man. Get it together.
But to that point, I'll say, one, like Tamar says, have several seats, Mr. Robert Zimmerman. But to that point also, I think it's a great marketing move. Like, he knows exactly how these things play out. And so for a family who was trying to raise money to pay for the defense, now they have a deal with Amazon. They're making money off of this as well. There are people out there who are willing to listen, willing to buy, and willing to read. Why not? No matter how it turns out, they know that they can make money after this. And he is just playing on people's, interests.
Gotcha.
The cost is $3.99.
Yeah, it only
And-
costs $3.99.
Yeah, so that may have
Can't
more
even
people.
buy a cup at Starbucks for $3.99. Can't
You can't. You can't.
That's just cheap, man. So we'll see what happens, man. 407-894-1680. The next question that I got to ask, and I got just a couple news stories we're going to hit. Listening to the radio, and a question got asked, and I said to myself, man, I got to put this to my audience. I got to see what they had to say. But they were talking about Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all those fathers out there. Belated Father's Day at this point. But they were talking about Father's Day, and they noticed how, and I noticed even at our church on Sunday, it was commented that, send out a happy Father's Day to all those single moms out there as well. And so that was the question. Should we be wishing single mothers a happy Father's Day? I mean, yes, they're the only one in the house, and I get that. But should we be wishing single moms a happy Father's Day? They just had Mother's Day last May, a couple Sundays ago. Now they're getting Father's Day too. Is that right? 407-894-1680 is the number. 407-894-1680 is the number. So should single moms also have a happy Father's Day as well? What do you think? I'll go to the ladies in the house. Ms. McCray, what you think?
And when we talked about this, if the father is not present in this child's life, and the mother literally has to play mom and dad, she's doing both. Now, as far as like getting gifts and giving her a card that actually says Happy Father's Day, that's a bit much. But I understand the concept of, look, you're mom and dad as much as you can be. No, you're not a man, but you're doing everything in the household that two parents should be doing. So you should get the respect that you are deserved.
I'm in agreement with that. I think also to the point of you see it played out many times when, let's say, for instance, athletes, when they're thanking their mother, they many times go to the fact that potentially the father was not in the household with them or wasn't there at all. So they even recognize their mother as both parents. And let me also say, I think everything is so blurred nowadays. There are no absolutes. So everything kind of, I think, more or less meshes together. You're the mother, you're the father, you're black. There is nothing where you can stand alone and say, all right, you are this person or you're that particular way. There are so many gray lines there. I don't see what the big issue is, but I don't think you should get a card or any extra love or shout outs or gifts other than thanks for being there for me as a mother and a father. Anything wrong with that?
Jeremy, what you got to say, bro?
What I got to say? You sure you want to hear it?
Yeah, I do want to hear, brother.
Father's Day is my holiday. Stop stepping on my toes.
But see, you're an active dad.
I understand that.
It's not you're not dealing with a single mom.
I'm talking about broad base here. I'm not talking about anybody's household in particular. I'm talking about a broad sweeping base here. My holiday, leave me alone. This is the only day I get all year. I don't get Christmas is not for me. Mother's Day show enough ain't for me. Birthdays ain't for me. Valentine's Day ain't for me. Your anniversary ain't even for me, really. So can I get Father's Day? That's all I'm asking.
Why is your birthday not for you?
No, I'm not saying. I mean, birthdays are not for me. I'm not talking about my particular birthday.
No.
I mean, I'm not big on birthdays anyway. So I'm not counting in the conversation. So that don't count to me.
What? Why not? That would be
It doesn't
considered
count.
the
I'm talking about
man's
no.
day.
I'm talking about broad base. Broad base.
Oh my God.
Father's Day. We get torn down too much into society. So if we got a national day to recognize the men that are in their lives,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Can't leave my shoes dirty. Get off my toes.
But that's what I said. If you are active in this child's life, then definitely you should get all the respect. But there are a lot of them that aren't.
Oh, I know that, but I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about us.
You're talking about the ones that
Get off my toes. Let me have a day. That's all I'm saying. And no disrespect, because Mother's Day, I do, all to you. Mother's Day and every other day, anniversary, Valentine's Day, your birthday,
Monday, Tuesday,
Christmas.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Come on, you know you enjoy
Sunday
that.
Sunday through
You
Saturday.
enjoy that.
Sunday through Saturday. Any more days?
Okay.
There's a benefit for you in those days, though.
If you
Right.
up north, Sweetheart's Day. Any other days?
Jeremy,
Yes.
is there a benefit in you for those days when you do something nice?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I can say that.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a benefit.
Okay.
I get to say I did it.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, what else?
Well, okay. I'll flip the script. Say you are a single father
Yeah,
and you have to do the mother's duty.
yeah.
And so here comes Mother's Day and Father's
You
Day.
ain't got to tell me nothing about no Mother's Day.
No,
I'm a man. All I want is my
if I'm
Father's
a
Day.
single father,
If I'm a single father, I just want my Father's Day.
I don't want no happy Mother's Day.
I don't need
'cause
no
I ain't
happy
no
Mother's
mother.
Day. I ain't no mother. I don't need it. I really
I
don't.
need that.
I don't need it.
Which is why I agree with Jeremy. I think it's to acknowledge a woman as Happy Father's Day. Yes, you may be the only person in the house, and I respect that, and I give you all respect and all the accolades for being the only person in the house, and that absentee man. But to say that you're actually the father as well, I got to disagree with you on that. You're not the father, because I think what are the attributes that you display that somehow also make you the father? Because what is there specific attributes that are attributed to only the father that you're now doing that, like what is that? What specifically are we referring to here?
The role of the father.
407-894-1680 is the number. 407-894-1680 is the number. Because, and one more point before you answer that, there are certain things that I think no matter what you are, mother, father, that can be done by both parties. So being the one to supply, you're the one that supplies them with everything they need. Okay, mother, father can do that because there's some people that are married and the father stays at home and the mom works. So mother, father can do that. So you take them to the baseball games. You traveling to all of that kind of stuff. So some of that generally you think of the father sometimes, but again, either way, the roles are. I think where the father comes in is more the emotional side of what that man brings, which from a woman you can't bring that emotional side that a man would bring, which is why you can't be the father as well. You can be the greatest mom in the world, and that is great because we need those, but you can't be the father as well. It's just not possible. You don't have the genetics to make that happen. But go ahead, Miss McCray.
You ain't got the authority in your voice.
Oh, God.
407-894-1680.
When I speak in my house, it's like the thunder. Better get inside.
What are you finna say, Miss McCray?
I lost my train of thought. Messing with Jeremy.
Oh gosh, you said.
But I agree with that. There are certain things, and I think more so, a father teaches you how to be loved in a different way than a mother teaches you how to be loved. So you know how to receive love, and you also know how to put value on your love. And then I think that's for a daughter, because that's what I think my dad taught me. That my dad taught me a different type of standard. Now my mom teaches me that or taught me that too, but to see it modeled in the opposite sex, then I can receive it from the opposite sex differently. And then I think for, a boy, speaking of his father, I listen to my boyfriend, he's always talking about, the fear that was instilled by his father. There's a certain way that a man talks to a boy or a son that a mother, I don't care how much you threaten, I don't care how much you raise your voice, I don't care how much he loves you, there's just something that they're just not afraid of you at the end of the day. They are, but they're not, because they still have a physical advantage over.
Once you get to a certain age,
you
kind of
certain
lose
age,
that.
You lose that edge. So there's something to that as well. And I can't teach you certain, I don't think mothers can teach you just certain things about your male anatomy, to describe it, to help you along with it. They can tell you what they think they know and what they've experienced, but to be able to relate, it's easy to go to mom and be like, Mom, I had this issue, or I need help with this, and she can tell me, and we are emotionally on the same playing field, or, and I think that's the same for a father to a son or a child.
And like I said, for those who are in the life, yes, but when he's nowhere to be found, it's up to the mother to try her best to fill those holes, or point that son or daughter in the right direction to somebody that they trust as a male figure to help with that. But as far as she gets the respect of having to really provide and just fill as many gaps as she possibly can, absolutely. I wish some single moms would call up and let us know how you feel.
Well, I would say this too, though, to all the single mothers out there. If you can, try to push, especially if you have a daughter, regardless of the child. I don't say push, but insert some positive male figure in their life. Especially for the boys. Whether they're at church, if you're not at church, there's a lot of mentoring programs out there. You might have to do a little due diligence to find them, but it's for your kids. I believe you should go all out. Try to put some kind of positive male figure in their life. Somebody that can teach them how to be a man.
Mm-hmm. Driving the conversation along here, do you feel like in society we sort of kind of pushing or sort of encouraging this mother can do all, a father is not necessarily needed in society? What do you guys think about that? Are we pushing that? You look at popular culture, you see especially celebrity women. They get to a certain age and it's just like it's celebrated that they had this child, and most times they had this child without being married, most of the time not even thinking about getting married. And then some of them are even bold enough to tell you that they're okay, they don't need the child to specifically have a father in his life because they got it. So do you feel like society is sort of pushing this idea that, a woman can be both roles, a woman can supply all that you need, and dad isn't necessarily necessary? Great if you're there, but, we're going to make it happen if you're not, and that's okay?
I think that's true. I think it's unfortunate, but I think there's a paradigm shift overall in thinking. And so the institutions that we know in the traditional sense of marriage and family, that's all moving away from what was done or kind of what we see as a norm. And then I think, too, it's also true in the African American community where it was by default that there was no choice. Like, men not being a part of their children's lives is nothing new. And that was inbred in our culture back when slavery was around. So it's just something that's generationally continued and been perpetuated. This, latest form of thinking of, I can do bad all by myself, or I can take care of everything on my own, was just a product of now kind of turning the negative into the positive, or wanting something different for their lives and saying, okay, I'm going to be empowered by it, I'm going to accept this role, and I'm going to flourish in it. I don't think any person really cares. Well, I can't say that first. I don't personally care to do it all by myself. You kind of feel like a superwoman as it is, trying to, when I watch my mom, raise a family, be married, have a career, and all that kind of stuff. I'm interested in doing that with another person. I want a man right there with me to help me do that. The whole notion of I can do it all by myself, hats off to, the women who believe that or subscribe to that theory. But I'm more of the traditional sense. I'd rather have, a household with someone else in there helping me.
Absolutely.
You want to be married.
Hey.
You want to raise a family.
Yeah.
407-894-1680 is the number. 407-894-1680 is the number. You can say something, Mr. McClusky?
No, it kind of reminded me of our discussion last week when we talked about somebody who has 20 kids.
Yes, the young black man, 22 kids. It was 17 baby mamas, actually. I found out. I thought it was on 13 or 14. It was actually 17.
It's just a shame.
Back to number 7 and 8. What was they thinking? See, at that point, it ain't even his fault no more. It's their fault now.
No, it's both of their fault. Right. It's both of them. But my point with that is, so he's a man. How can is he gonna be a good father to all the 22 kids?
22,
and what is he going to teach these young men? So I think it's not only do you find the child a man, just a man. No, that's you need to find somebody of quality that can teach them the proper values and proper character of what manhood is. Because this dude, that's somebody's daddy. 22 people's daddy, and he's rolling around, and these ladies too, they're just as guilty for sleeping with this man unprotected, knowing he has all these kids.
Definitely that situation is just out of control. And like you had commented, they were basically all living off the government too. So the government was supporting all 22 of his kids. I think we said last week $84,000 a year the government was toting to support his kids. So 407-894-1680 is the number. 407-894-1680. Like you said, it is kind of a shame, and we see it a lot more, unfortunately, in the black community. I saw a stat that said 72% of black homes are single parent homes. So 72%, that's a lot of homes. That's a lot of kids, millions of kids that are growing up with some kind of single parent family home. And I think, like you said, it's being perpetuated because once you kind of see it, you kind of have to learn that there's another avenue, It's not inherent once you've grown up in that environment. And then even when you find it, it's a lot of times it's hard to keep it because you don't know what it's like. And so it just perpetuates even further because you don't even grasp the peril. If anybody that's being married will tell you, marriage is like having a job. It takes work. It's a full-time job, man, and it takes effort. But if you haven't seen that, once you hit that rock, once you hit that road, once you hit that brick wall, you're ready to go. Because man, I seen my mama do it on her own. I don't need all this.
Right, exactly.
So again, it's that. Unfortunately, it's that cycle, and in our communities, especially, proportionate amount of women and men are falling into those single parent homes, and hopefully, we can do some things, encourage, change the way we think. Keep talking to the youth, keep showing them by what a happy family's like. Unfortunately, a lot of times they have to fall to television to do that, which is definitely not the best source.
Right.
Do they have happy families on television
right.
anymore?
The Cosby's not on there no more.
The Cosby's not on there.
Y'all get them reruns.
You get the reruns of the Cosby's.
These kids don't know nothing.
And then every Saturday you get one too.
I would say this too though, but I don't even necessarily advocate the Cosby as a good example because, especially today, only reason I'm saying that's because it's they can't relate to it. The father's a doctor, the mother's a lawyer. They looking at it like, okay, that's fantasy land.
But that's the problem.
You show me something. I know, but what I'm saying is they're looking at that. That's nothing. They can't even relate to that. They got to come, maybe the Hughleys or something. Put the Hughleys back on, some reruns of them. Or even, what's the Damon Wayans joint?
My Wife and Kids.
Yeah, My Wife. Something like that. That's a little more relatable to them,
He had his own business.
Yeah,
Well,
but I'm
what,
saying that's
mechanic.
Vending.
No, he had a
Vending?
vending machine.
Oh.
Well, Hughley's a vending machine, and trucking was
Trucking.
Trucking.
Okay.
But see, I'm saying that's something they can kind of more relate to. Oh, I see trucks every day. You know what I'm saying? But the cause is a little far fetched to them. They can't relate to no positive hip hop. How they gonna relate to a mama with the lawyer and the doctor? The dad's a doctor. You know.
There's so many layers to that conversation.
I know.
There's so
That's
many
just
layers.
sad.
And I can't yeah, there's just a lot of layers.
It's just like, why not think that that's real? Like, I just, that doesn't.
Well, it goes back to our experience. It goes back to our mindsets, especially when you consider, what you say you can't relate to. In my world, that is relatable. I can kind of vision that. But when you grew up, you look at some of the rougher, quote unquote, neighborhoods in Orlando. When you grew up off of Mercy Drive, it is kind of far fetched to believe that I'm going to grow up off Mercy Drive and then I'm going to become a doctor, and then as I become a doctor, I'm going to meet this girl who's also a lawyer, and then we're going to have kids and we're going to be happy, and it's like it is far fetched when that's your reality, when that's your perception, and even some of the other neighborhoods around there, and so it is a sad world that's what we live in. For them, the more realistic idea is it goes back to, living the hip hop dream, or being able to shoot the rock really good, or be able to run really fast, or catch really well, or throw the ball really well. Those realities seem a little bit closer to home than the lawyer and the doctor.
But I fault the people who actually make it to that level of success when we're talking about lawyers and doctors and businessmen, because they don't come back. And who comes back to the neighborhood are the guys who can play ball. Right. And so they're the ones. You always see Chris
Johnson in the hood.
Yeah. You hear about his. Okay, I'm not going to put that out. Okay. So, but they're the ones who always come back. So those are the role models that they see. And I think a lot of times it's just about exposure. And those kids everybody has the potential to be anything that they want to be. Unfortunately, they're just not exposed to it. Yes. And so when the athlete comes back to the neighborhood, or the entertainer comes back to the neighborhood to show off, hey, I've made it, this is what I got, you can do this too. Unfortunately, some of the upper level executives aren't going back, because they may be afraid, they may just want to turn their backs and just go totally different. Their interest level just may be not the same, or they don't feel the same attachment. Whatever the case may be, they just don't go back. So they are the kids are only going by what they see, and it all starts back with just exposure. They just got to be exposed to it.
You got to take them out of that environment for a while, show them that there is another side to the story, if you will. And I think too, a lot of those kids too, I think there would be some resistance too, unfortunately, if they did show up, because it is kind of far-fetched for them to believe that they can, let's say you're the vice president at Coca-Cola. It is kind of far-fetched to believe somehow they're going to make it to be vice president of Coca-Cola. When it is, again, it goes back to, I play basketball every day. I feel like I am the greatest on the playground. And so, I feel a kinship to say, I can grow up and be a ball player. Whereas, I may not like school. So the idea of thinking I'm going to have to go to school, I'm going to have to not only graduate from college, I'm going to have to get my master's potentially, and then maybe even, look at a PhD, or, that higher education is very fearful for them, because a lot of them aren't, so hip on the idea of going to college. And then even people who go to college are afraid of master's degrees sometimes. So
it's no joke, honey. It is no joke.
So I mean, you even have that hurdle at you as well. So, but like you said, it is exposure. You do have to get those kids in a different environment, show them that there are other ways to live besides, playing ball. And I think a lot of that falls back on the community as well, because even when we are highlighting people, we tend to highlight. That's what we highlight. We highlight the ball player. We highlight the entertainer. We don't bring the doctor. We don't bring the lawyer and have him on television and talk about how great he is and this, that, and the third.
We do.
we try and do that on Real Family Talk. But Dr. Ben Carson is a good example of that. Another guy who basically pulled himself up from the gutter, if you will, and has become one of the greatest neurosurgeons ever in history, for that matter. And so he's a great example of that. And I'm sure he does some kind of community outreach, but even his story seems, far-fetched.
But
and then unfortunately they tarnished his name recently.
Well, he tarnished his name with his
We
comments.
won't go there. He did what he had to do.
His
Mr.
comments tarnished his name.
Honesty is always a killer. But
Foolishness.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Tiffany.
I just think the kids have so much potential, and there's just so much sitting there that just needs to be cultivated. But also, if your child is intelligent and has something going for them, or you recognize something, that has to be promoted. And in order to promote that has to be looked upon as cool as well. And I think once you start kind of creating that mindset that being smart or intelligent is cool, then hopefully, people will, catch on. But then also, if your child is in need of help, there are a lot of times so many people who are afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
If your child needs help, if they have a learning disability, if it just takes them a little extra time, then it is a responsibility of the parent, and it has to kind of go back to that whole community and village to help them out. Get the kid in the tutoring center, Saturday school, whatever is necessary to kind of help them along as well, but don't just leave them behind.
Definitely.
And just to round that about, it jumps back to what Jason Henry was talking about. If then said parent can't take off work, say Saturday, if they have to work on a Saturday, and to take their child to the center, but if they take off work that day because they don't have paid sick leave, they can possibly lose their job. Or if they're sick or they've used it, whatever time they may need to take care of that child. It all just flows. It all flows together.
I see what you did there.
You saw it? A
I
little
saw
bit?
that. Yeah.
I tried.
Yeah, I see you tried.
A little bit.
Yeah. Obviously, you're a supporter of Ms. McCray.
As a person who is ill, and if I needed to take time off, and I had that issue at work where my job was hanging over my head if I took too many days, but what do you do if you're not feeling well? That's a whole nother. We can do a whole nother story.
Yeah, I'm a supporter too.
On that one.
I'm a supporter too, because it's the same situation. The reality is, what do you say? It was 70-some% single parent homes.
Yeah.
So that's the reality. Yeah. We can talk about what's supposed to be all we want, but the reality is mostly single parent homes. So if that parent is sick, just common sense to me dictates they should have an option and not have to worry about their job. Because then what you worried about? Oh, then you want them to come in, they sick, they end up not feeling well, then the kids going crazy, yada, 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 yada. You get robbed 5 years later.
You get robbed.
You get robbed.
Wondering what happened.
Okay.
People get robbed now, huh, bro? Okay.
You're getting robbed.
Hey. You gotta help the parents, help these single parents out.
I hear you, brother.
Just leave my Father's Day alone. So
we'll wrap this up. We appreciate you for listening. Make sure you tune in next week with us. Next week we're gonna have the owner from Star Butts Salon stopping by. Star Butts, Butts. That's what I said. Star Butts Salon. She's gonna come by and talk to us, tell us about her business. It is a tanning salon business. And she's going to tell us all the great benefits about it, and look forward to having Miss Har on the show next week. Yes, black people can tan, Miss McCray. But we'll get into that next week, Miss McCray. We're going to have a good time. We're going to have a good time with Miss Har next week. She is a character. Star Butts Salons is going to be here. She's going to talk about her business. They're located down in Winter Park on the corner of 1792 and Lee Road. So make sure you check them out. And like I said, she'll be here next week to talk about it. We thank you for listening. We want to thank Jason Henry for coming by. We want to thank Miss Tiffany for coming by as well. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Twitter. Everything's Real Family Talk, even YouTube. This is your host, Jay Real, signing off. We'll see you next week. follow us on Facebook, Real Family Talk. You can follow us on Twitter, Real Family Talk. The website, realfamilytalk.weebly.com.
WOKB, Winter Garden, Orlando.